Hello, welcome to episode 31 of Love's a Battlefield, the DV podcast. My name is Tilly Moore and welcome. How are you? How have you been? I hope you're well. I hope you're keeping safe. Now, today's is, okay, I'm going to say it again. I always say it. It's going to be a short one and then I get to talk and then you know how it is. But who knows? Let's just roll with this. Let's just hop on this ride and start going. Now, today I have titled it, Why Do We Keep Abuse a Secret? I was thinking maybe I should have said, why do victims keep abuse a secret? We victims, whatever, potato, potato, here we are. Basically, if you've been through DV, you know the answer to this because you know. But if you haven't, you wouldn't know. You'd be like, yeah, like when you get here, why don't you just tell people, well, here we go. Just going to share a few little things about this one because I just came up with this idea for this episode because it was like, one of those things where you assume people know why people keep it a secret when they're in an abusive relationship, but people who haven't been in it actually don't know. They have no idea why. And so I thought, yeah, we'll put that out there just in case someone comes across it one day and they've got a friend who's gone through it and they're thinking, oh, what a bitch. She didn't tell me she was going through that. And they take it personal or something and then they realize, oh, that's why you just have to keep it a secret. So let's just get into it. So basically, the first thing that comes to mind is shame. Shame that you are in an abusive relationship, that you met someone and you told all your friends, oh, this guy's so great. I love him. He's the greatest. And we're in a relationship, it's going well. And, you're reporting back that everything's really good. And then when the abuse starts, you're like, oh, I failed. I failed. Like, I picked wrong guy. I picked the wrong guy. Um, uh, it, you know, the shame of having to admit that you've failed in finding a good relationship and also the shame in admitting that everything you said about this guy was actually not true. You didn't know you were lying. You didn't know when you were saying he's the greatest, he's so nice. You didn't know that wasn't true. But now you got to backpedal on all that. And so there's so much shame with that. And another thing linked to shame is judgment. Particularly if you've been through DV before. Now, as I've said before, a perpetrator of mine would go on DV pages in Facebook, Australian ones, looking for his next set of victims. There's always more than one. They always have a few women on the go. But yeah, and he would intentionally do that. And his theory was, and I mean, it makes sense. His theory was if you've been through DV before and your family and friends find out that, oh, now this guy, him, that you've started dating is abusive, they're going to look at you and go, this isn't your first one. You're the common denominator. So, yeah. So he would intentionally look for people who've been through abuse before, knowing that he can easily isolate that victim from their family and friends if it comes out that he is abusive, knowing they've been through it before. He can say, yeah, I'm not the first one, and she's really unstable, and just really isolate them so well and get that power and control that he is just desperate for. Isn't that sick to intentionally target people who've been through abuse? And yes, as I'd said many, many, many episodes ago, at one stage, I saw him on a very popular domestic violence Facebook group in Australia, and he was banned from there or kicked off or something eventually, but it was a process. So that was really creepy. But he also got a lot of people by making fake I'm a victim posts. So it's so scary and so hard and so horrible to think, there are people out there targeting people and lying and manipulating. And that's why you get that shame and you think you're going to be judged. You think you're going to be judged if you've been through DV before, but you're going to think you're going to be judged because you should have known better. Why didn't you see the red flags? Now, I'm telling you, this manipulator had no red flags. And to this day, I say he had none. Actually, I was thinking about that today. I was thinking about the only red flag he had was that he really liked me. And I thought, why should liking me be a red flag? And now it's like, so if I meet people and they like me, it's like, oh, you could kill me. Like, you could abuse me. Like, you could be a narcissist. You could be a psychopath. You might kill me. Like, because you like me. I don't think that's a red flag. So really, there were none. I really shouldn't tell myself that if someone likes me, it's a red flag. Now, next year, I've written some notes. I've written some notes about this episode just to like stimulate my thoughts. Okay, society still is largely misogynistic. Basically, people still believe that DV is an argument between two people that has escalated, and maybe the woman annoyed the man so much and that pushed him past the edge into violence. You know, people actually out there still believe domestic violence is an argument between two people with two sides to every story. That bullshit. And they think that it just escalated. And they think that the woman pushed and nagged and went, yeah, at the guy, and he eventually just snapped and hit her. That's what people think domestic violence is. And I can tell you, I would have thought that's what domestic violence was if I hadn't been through it. They do not understand that the person who is the abuser is not well in the head. They are already like having narcissistic personality disorder or some kind of personality disorder. There's something not right in their head. They're quite calculated, planned, manipulative. It's like a serial killer, like picking their next victim. It's like very calculating, creepy, and nothing that the victim says or survivor says or does changes anything. This person has a plan and they're going to do it. So it's like blaming someone for a serial killer, picking them up off the side of the street and killing them. These people target people. They usually target nice people, honest people, real people, people who are empaths, people who care about others, who love others, like good people. And there's nothing wrong with being a good person. But knowing that society is still so misogynistic and there is still this view that DV is a naggy, horrible woman that pushed a man beyond his limits. Well, that's not something you really want to admit. You want to keep that quiet, that you're going through that, because I felt that. Like if I said I got hit or abused or anything, I still think it now. If I tell people, I think they're going to think, oh, she's psycho, she's crazy. That's why men hit her. Like you just think people will think that because that is something that men and misogyny, patriarchy has put into society, that it's a woman's fault. And we've actually now realized as a society, and slowly it's filtering through what DV actually is and how many women and children have lost their lives to these violent, unstable, unhinged men. Now, what else have I written in my little list? Okay, people will tell you to leave. Yes. Okay. So I'm just going to read my notes and then go, huh? Oh, yeah, that's what I meant. Because I'm all the professional here. It's the most professional podcast. Yeah. Okay, I'll stop singing because we know that I can't. Now, people will tell you to leave. If you tell your friend that you're going through this, they're going to go, well, why don't you leave him? And then they're going to lose respect for you, or you can even lose your friendship with them because they'll get frustrated that you're not doing anything, that you're staying with this person. And that brings us to trauma bond, which we've discussed before. There is an episode on it. Now, if you are trauma bonded, you're not ready to leave. So if you're going to tell someone, they're going to think you're telling them because that's it. You're leaving them. You'll never go back again. So you can't tell anyone because you can only tell people when that is it. You're putting the nail in the coffin. You're never, ever going to go back, because if you tell them and then you go back, they lose respect for you and it isolates you from those friends, which, I mean, your abuser loves. Am I right or am I right? Actually, there was someone at my work and we were working next to each other, and I just made this comment. I said, oh, he won't let me leave the relationship. Or I said, yeah, he won't let me break up with him, or something like that. And I thought I was being funny, and I knew, I knew, I mean, you don't not know you're being abused. I was very much being abused, very much in an abusive relationship, but very much trauma bonded and confused and all that stuff. But I was protecting him. And so I knew not to tell anyone, and then I had to cover up bruises. And wear long sleeves all the time, and you know what I mean. You know what I mean. So I had said, oh, he won't let me leave the relationship, thinking it was like a funny joke, not realizing until she looked at me. So she suddenly stopped and went, is he like abusive? Like, are you okay? Like, that's not okay. Are you serious? And then I had to say, oh no, I'm joking. And like cover it up and backpedal, because I couldn't it's also a safety thing. Like, I couldn't let her know, oh yeah, I'm in an abusive relationship, but I'm absolutely doing nothing about it and I'm not leaving, because everyone will lose respect for you because you have trauma bond. You're also not safe. At that time, I wasn't safe, and I had to formulate a plan to get away in a way that I wouldn't get murdered. And, we came close. So it was smart of me to know that I wasn't safe. But that person, actually, he ended up manipulating them and convincing them that I was on this drug and I was crazy and all this stuff. Because one day she just randomly bit my head off and it made no sense. When things don't make sense, there's like a manipulative psychopath around. There's a narcissist around when things are weird, because we were friends and then she just bit my head off because he had been talking to her and convinced her of all these lies about me, which I didn't know. This is what I figured out ages later. And I was so confused at the time why she just suddenly was mean and bit my head off and like hated me overnight. And then like later on I realized, oh yes, well, he was telling people this, and this, these lies. And then I realized, oh yep, he told her those and she bought it hook, line and sinker. So, people need to not judge the person in the abusive relationship if they're being manipulated by the same manipulator. They're very manipulative. So, and that person hasn't spoken to me since. So there you go. Good, isn't it? So, in hindsight, I'm like, oh, I'd wish I told her I was in an abusive relationship first. But I didn't know that when I did try and leave him, he would be like spreading lies and trying to actively destroy my life, even though it was one of the many threats. You just don't think an adult human is capable of or driven to do some of these absolutely ridiculously crazy things. You just think, when they're like, oh, if you leave me, I'm going to do this. You just think, grow up, mate. No, you're not. Why would you do that? What grown adult is going to do that if someone breaks up with them? How embarrassing. It makes them look like an absolute little toddler having a tantrum. But they do. They go through with it and they go and convince everyone of these lies. And you're like, you just did that? What the hell is wrong with you? Meanwhile, everyone's buying into you're a drug addict and you're psychotic and you're aggressive and psycho and you're abusing him and all these lies, which I can laugh about now. But at the time, it's just like, are you all right, mate? Like, who does that? Anyway, next I've written, you have to be 100% sure it's over for good if you are going to tell someone this. I learned this because when I was younger, like a young adult dating people, I would go to my friends with everything. Undiagnosed neurodivergent, just telling them all the things. I didn't realize you meant to not tell people everything about your life. Oops, missed that whole social cue growing up. And I would say, oh, my boyfriend doesn't talk to me much, or does this or does that, or all these things, complain about things. And then when I'm back with them, oh, there was one guy who wasn't nice. And then, and then when you go to get back with them, no one wants to know them. No one wants to hang out with you guys socially. It's really hell. Like if you go to your friends or family about anything negative, your other half, your boyfriend or whatever, your husband, whatever does, and then you try and get back together, it's really hard to undo. In fact, I've been on the other side of this because I had a bestie and she was with this guy and they got engaged and everything. And then she found out he cheated and then they still got married. And me and some of her family and friends were just like, we hate him. Like he cheated on you. And he just had this arrogant, controlling vibe. And he gave her, like, he was just so controlling of her. So we had good reason to suspect like he wasn't very nice for her, but she was just so devoted to him. And after we knew he cheated and she took him back, like he cheated. And I think they were about to get married when he did. And she took him back. We all got the ick. Like we were just like, no. Like, and even at his wedding, there were people who were like, "Mm." And I was a bit like, oh, and I haven't heard from her for a while, but the last time she was just miserable, but had to have, I don't know, him, he was very controlling, but she seemed to still like him. But being on the other side of that, like I get it, like you love your friend so much, and when someone treats them with disrespect, you just lose respect for them. And so things then get awkward, like when you're trying to be friends with their partner, knowing that they've done these horrible things to your friend. And so if you are going to tell someone, and I learnt this when I was younger, like if you're going to tell someone anything negative or about, especially about DV, you've got to be sure that's it. Like you are leaving them and never ever going back, because if you go back, you've pretty much lost that friend. While you're with him, you won't be able to be with that friend, or you'll have to hang out with that friend but not talk about him, and things will just be so awkward. So that's another reason we don't tell anyone. We just have to keep it a secret. We have to protect this horrible monster. Now, on the subject of protecting them, that's another thing. We have to protect them because we are at risk if they find out we've told people about the abuse, or if they find out that we have disclosed that they are abusing us. That is hell to pay. That's when they initiate Plan C, which is like complete destruction. That's a really weird voice I'm doing. I don't really understand why. But honestly, if you tell someone and they find out that you've told people they're like they will amp it up another notch. You could literally lose your life. You can lose a lot of other things. Things will get bad. No good comes from telling someone. So telling someone is always the 11th hour as you are leaving. If not like ages later. I've had friends tell me years after, oh, by the way, yeah, I separated from them and divorced them. Oh, yeah, they were a narcissist, they were abusive. Like, what? And I'd known them and their husband for years. And it was like, hey, because I'd moved away and, they hadn't posted, because you don't brag on social media about what's going on. And then we catch up and chat. And then they tell you that. And you're just like, wow, I had no idea. And so it makes sense. You can't tell people until you're ready to leave at a minimum. And then after that point, because it is dangerous, it is risky. It is, and then if you get back with them because you trauma bond, that's just humiliating, because trauma bond is humiliating. You don't want to like them. You consciously know, I shouldn't like this person, but it's like a drug addiction. No one who's addicted to ice actually thinks, oh, I want to take more ice, watching it ruin their life. They don't want it, but they do. Okay, does that make sense? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? So what's my advice to someone who's friends with someone who is in an abusive situation? Either they've told them or they're kind of keeping it a secret. But just be there when they fall. Be there when they reach out to you. And it might be frustrating because they might tell you and say, I'm leaving and everything, and then they don't leave. And then they go back to them and you're like, oh, please leave them. And then they do that a couple of times. Now, have you heard it's a minimum 7 times, or is it an average? It was either a minimum or an average 7 times a woman leaves their abuser and goes back before they finally leave for good. So knowing that statistic, knowing that is, I'm pretty sure it's an average of 7 times. Knowing that, so that means that's the middle, so it couldn't be 14 times. Now, it's really hard to be friends with someone who's doing that. It's like being friends with someone who is doing something to harm themselves. Self-harm, drugs, alcohol, lots of things. It's really hard. You might have to put up boundaries, honestly, but once it's all said and done, just my advice would be there. Try not to get too involved unless they really need you, like they suddenly need an emergency place to stay or something. But we do understand, like we understand that every time we go back, like, we've lost you, like, you're going to hate us, you're going to disrespect us. We're hating ourselves even more when we go back, like so much hating ourselves. But it's this cycle, and eventually we either get flung off the okay, now in my head, it's like a horse's like carousel ride, horses going around. You're either going to get flung off, you're going to step off quietly, or you're going to try and get off, but the horse is going to chase you and grab you. Okay, carousel analogy, fail. But really, that was shithouse advice, because it is so hard to witness someone going through this and to going back. But I think if someone was friends with someone who was in an abusive relationship, learn all you can about trauma bond. I remember being given, I think I've said this before, being given a brochure on what is trauma bond by a DV service once when I was in trauma bond. And I read it and it made no sense to me. 0 sense. I should write that brochure, because what they said in it, they were just like, some people like getting abused. Or like, it was like, oh, when you've been through abuse and stuff with someone, you just feel like you really want to be with them and they're so good. And you've been through this big event together, so you just feel drawn in together because you've been through this trauma together. Like, I've heard that theory that trauma bond is you've been through a traumatic event with this person, so you feel closer to them because you've been through this event. Like, what? No. What needs to be in the brochures is the neurochemical thing. My episode of Trauma Bond that explains, hey, it's not your fault. This person groomed you and love bombed you, which started this neurochemical bullshit, and your brain is addicted. And this is how you get away from it. This is how you cut it off. But the brochure just made no sense. I was like, I don't have that. I don't have trauma bond. If the brochure said, hey, how you going? Do you know you've been groomed and love bombed? Because I knew what was going on. Like, I knew I was in an abusive relationship, but I was like, this brochure makes no sense. I'm not drawn to someone. I'm not wanting to love them and be with them. My brain isn't addicted to loving this person and having feelings for this person because we've gone through stressful events together. What? That brochure should just die. Die, brochure, die. No, but the brochure made no sense. And so I went wee on my merry way, all trauma bonded, having no idea what it really was going on. So the brochure needs to say, hey, grooming, love bombing sets you up for this. And then your brain gets addicted and then you get in withdrawals. And it needs to mention the actual neurochemicals and what's going on, and really take it away from, oh, you just went through something stressful with this person, so you really like them. Like, that made no sense. Like, what? What? Anyway, so trauma bond. So my recommendation is, if you do know someone in a relationship and they're not telling you, learn about trauma bond. Be prepared that they might leave them and go back. And it's not them not taking your advice or not respecting you. Trust me, they know. Like, deep down, they know going back is wrong and it's hurting them. But there's more at play. And you might say, hey, are you in danger? Like, if you leave him, and they'll go, no, but like, consciously they think no, but then when they leave and then like ages later when they're out of the relationship, they look back and go, yeah, no, I was in danger. You just don't know at the time. Like, you can't perceive how dangerous the person you're with is because you love them. You spend time with them, you do things together, you have these really intimate, deep conversations, you look in their eyes, you don't perceive how dangerous this person is. Even when I was actively losing my life, like, it's so hard. And when I was held hostage, it's so hard to perceive that the person you're with, even like, okay, reverse. Beep, 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 beep. When you get hit, I don't know I'm assuming I'm talking to people who have been hit, but if I haven't, when you get hit, it is such a mind fuck. Like, you're in love with this person. They love you so much, treat you amazing. Like, they literally do, because grooming and love bombing. But at the time, you don't see it as that. They treat you so good, like a princess, put you on a pedestal. You are so in love with this person. And then when they hit you, it's like, huh? Your brain can't perceive that this person is dangerous because your brain, as far as it knows and all its lovely neurochemicals know, all your brain's data knows is this is the love of your life. So when they hit you, you can't perceive that it's the same person. You know it is. So consciously you're like, I know that happened. I'm not mad. Like I know that happened, but it's really hard to see that that's now a dangerous person because just say you had a bag of M&Ms and you took out all the colors and you just put the yellow ones back in. Yellow meaning love, great, awesome partner, awesome boyfriend, all positive things, right? And you got this bag and it's just got yellow M&Ms in it. Then you throw one blue in, that's being hit, right? So the blue is like the bad, like they've hit you. Your brain still sees that that's mostly a bag of yellow M&Ms. There's one blue in there. And that blue actually means that that bag was never yellow. It's all blue, like now, in hindsight. But when you're in it, you just have a bag of yellow M&Ms with one blue, and you really hate that that blue is there. And it's really hard to tell yourself, hey, undo all those yellow M&Ms. They're not, and tell your brain that there's no yellow M&Ms in this bag. They're all blue now because of that one blue. Like, does that make sense? Like, one massive slap across your head, one head injury or something sounds like bad, and it is. You just like, how's that the same person? So that opens you up for them to manipulate you, groom and love bomb again, and hoover you back into that relationship because it's like just one blue M&M, you know? And that's how it starts. And that's how you keep going back because your brain has been so conditioned to be filled with these loving, amazing, positive yellow M&Ms that when there's one or two blue ones come in, you know, getting hit, you're like, but my brain says this is still a good person because this is still a yellow M&M bag. Yeah. Does that make sense? So, it was a shorter one today. It felt so quick, but that's it. That's why we don't tell you. Shame, guilt, fear of being judged, fear of losing. We will lose our friends. If you literally told, if I told a friend of all, I mean, I told people at times, I don't know, but of all my attempts to escape this monster, every single attempt, they'd just be like, huh? Like it's such a roller coaster. I mean, you pair that with him trying to manipulate your friends when you're trying to leave him and manipulate everyone around you to isolate you, to get them to hate you. Well, if you've had this friend where you're like, I'm leaving him, I'm not, I'm leaving him, I'm going back, I'm leaving him, they've lost respect for you. So it makes it even easier for him to isolate you and you lose your friends. Like, yeah, it's pretty messed up. So that's why we keep it a secret and we don't want to keep it a secret. Oh, I've never forgotten, like, I was on the floor hiding and just, I think I was, crying. I think I'd been crying. And I'd been abused, obviously, that night physically, and I was trying to hide from him. And it was just terrifying. And I remember thinking of friends I had that I don't have anymore, which is really sad because of him. And I was just thinking, I wish I could talk to them right now. Like I was allowed to have my phone when he was abusing me. So, but I was like, I wish I could talk to them. I wish, like part of me wish they knew what I was going through, but it's not on my friends to save me. And that's another thing we do. If we don't tell you, please don't take offense because we're protecting you from that bullshit. We're protecting you from this manipulative asshole. We're protecting you from us depending on you. We don't want to be like, come help me. And we don't want our friendship with you to be like that. We want to be equal friends and be a friend to you. We don't want to be like, I'm having drama with this guy and come and help me. We don't want to be like that. So, but I just remember thinking about them in that moment and just thinking if they knew, they would care, but I just can't tell them. And it's just really sad. So anyway, that's how it is. We can't tell you. We want to tell you. That's why we don't tell you. And if you have someone who has told you, well, that Doesn't go well when they go back. Average of 7 times. But eventually we get there. Or sometimes they kill the women because that's what these dangerous, horrible human pits do. So actually, on the news today in Australia, I just want to share this news article. Completely left field. Absolutely nothing to do with the topic. But I just saw it on the news. Well, I don't watch the news. I saw it on TikTok. But TikTok had a clip of Australian news. This man was crying because his rich, I like to say white, I don't know, I guess they are mostly, but his rich son's all-boys school was planning on changing it to co-ed in 2 years' time. And this man was crying that his son's life was his grandson that hadn't been born yet. So he didn't give a shit about a future granddaughter. His future grandson, he wanted to go there, but his life was ruined because there was going to be women there. What a piece of misogynistic crap. Oh my goodness. And all these parents were just beside themselves. They were actively protesting outside the school. And I thought, what have they made it go co-ed already? And these girls have to walk past with these parents saying, we hate that you're female. Like, do they know that they're being misogynistic and they're just being misogynistic to their whole chest? And those poor internalized misogynist women with their husbands going, yeah, we don't want girls here in our all-boys school. I know a local, very, very rich, I wish I could have afforded it, rich people only, all-boys school. And while I was at school, like in my school years, this all-boys rich school went co-ed and I was like, yes, I was going to an all-girls school. And I was like, yes, I want to go there so bad because imagine being in the first year that girls could come. There wouldn't be that many girls because it's the first year. So I was like, oh, you're just like, you know, a few girls at this all-boys. I was like, this would be so good. And I asked if I could go there and they said they couldn't afford it. And then when I had kids and saw how much it costs, I get it. Like there's no way my parents, no one can, okay, rich people only can afford that school. But I had wished it wasn't expensive. If it wasn't expensive, if it was the same price as my bogan dodgy school, oh my goodness. And imagine if they could send me there. I was so wanting to go there so bad. In fact, the first time I crowd surfed was at a school social at that school when it was an all-boys school. And yes, and then it was like, girls can come next year. And I was like, you sign me up. I want to be a handful of girls in an all-boys school. And no one protested. No one, I mean, society's always been misogynistic, but no one's that freaking rude. Like New South Wales or wherever that other one is, get your shit together, you misogynistic pricks. This school is so successful now, like this school where it's co-ed, the one that became co-ed when I was in high school. It's fine. It's brilliant. It's such a good school. But these pompous, asshole, insecure, weak bitches just think they can just hate women. Like, because you know what they've said? You know what these people have said? They said that women coming to the school will now make their sons second-class citizens. If it's like they're just saying, hey, this is what patriarchy and misogyny is, but they can't even see how much they're showing us how fucking fucked misogyny and patriarchy is. They can't even see how obvious they are about this because they obviously believe women are second-class citizens. So by putting second-class citizens, these people with vaginas in their son's school, their son will no longer be going to a prestigious school because there are women there. So it's now they're second-class citizens. You fucking pricks. Literally, this is where domestic violence stems from. Values of misogyny in this patriarchal society. It is changing. It is slowly changing. It's come a ways, but it has a long way to go, especially with this. It's 2023 and you're on television crying because your son's going to be a second-class citizen. Well, this man with his imaginary grandson that hadn't been born yet, but he had a plan that his grandson would go to this school. Like, what about your granddaughter? oh, well, she'll just have babies and shit. For what? And then he's going to go and be some executive CEO person. And then what? He's going to cheat on his wife, but she's going to be at home serving him. You patriarchal, freaking misogynistic bastards. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that. That's the news today in Australia. And that's why men keep killing women in Australia, because it all stems from misogyny and this patriarchal, misogynistic society. But it's not just Australia, it's happening all over the world. Speaking of the world, I wanted to say I don't like what's happening overseas with the wars. Apparently, the media isn't even really covering Ukraine, Russia thing anymore. And what's happening in Palestine is absolutely shocking. And so while this is about DV, when we talk about violence, there's some absolutely horrific, evil violence going on in our world at the moment. And I just put all thoughts and prayers, but like literally thoughts and prayers, out to the people who are suffering and pray that this ends. Oh, so I did keep chatting and now I've gone to 36 minutes, 15 seconds. Okay. Stay safe. Love your legends. Bye. Chat next week.